Breaking today, Meghan Markle breaks her agreement with King Charles and Buckingham Palace to leak to her friends at People magazine less than a week after that promised meeting with Charles and Queen Camilla. Meanwhile, Prince Harry has arrived back in the United States completely fine, proving the point that I have made, by the way, for months and years, that they can travel in and out of the UK with their children privately with absolutely no issues whatsoever. What is quite notable, though, is that Meghan Markle didn't attend the Time 100 event with Harry. Certainly, when the chips are down, she don't want to be seen with her Duke. Ms. Pepper is no longer interested in the salt shaker, if you understand what I mean. Torre Buckingham writing, Prince Harry, the bonehead who sinks millions into failed privacy actions and who says camera flashes terrify him, is now doing cheesy "have you got my best side, guys" camera turns at celebrity galas like he's Meghan Markle's sugar lump veneers. Hypocritical old ham. And indeed, he was loving this event so much overnight that he even praised the photographers who he usually claims to despise.
Love it. Life is good.
Outstanding.
You're perfect. There it is.
There's one lady, it's me.
She's the best.
In case you missed that, just listen again from this different angle.
And Mr. Duke of Sussex on the end, sir.
There's one lady, it's me.
And your friend on the end, sir. The best. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, our affable Duke even pretended to be an England football fan.
Is she going to take
Hello.
questions?
Are you sad about England losing?
Of course.
Is she going to take
Hello.
questions?
Are you sad about England losing?
Of course.
Is she going to take
Hello.
questions?
Are you sad about England losing?
Of course.
He doesn't care, by the way. He thinks England football fans like me are bonehead racists. But as you saw from that People magazine cover, they couldn't hold their silence. What they had told King Charles was a lie, because look at that. Harry's royal reunion at last. His family visit Charles as new drama unfolds inside Prince Harry's turbulent UK visit, from a public palace dispute to a crushing court loss to a long-awaited reunion with King Charles alongside Meghan, Archie and Lily. But why this matters, of course, is that we know that Prince Harry has in the past directly emailed People magazine. We know that People magazine effectively operates as like the house journal for the Sussexes. And we know that Meghan Markle wanted it to be known to the world that the choreography of this meeting was nothing to do with her. Look at the headline. Meghan Markle always lets Prince Harry lead when it comes to the royal family. There's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded and that she wasn't able to be by his side throughout the visit. A source tells People. Well, again, you know it matters to me that I'm open about where these sources come from, and certainly in the case of People magazine, it is either directly from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, directly from one of their friends, or directly from their communications team, at the moment the hapless Liam Maguire. And I think the reporting directly contravenes what Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had agreed with the palace, which was that there was to be no briefing around this visit to try and shape the narrative in favour of one party. But she can't help herself, can she? So this is the cover report where People says the Duchess planned to be by her husband's side for several outings. However, there was an about-face when security concerns prevented her and their two children from a full visit to Harry's home country. Now, again, this is totally intellectually dishonest reporting from People magazine. There's been no about-face. Nothing has changed. Like, they got the security that has already been agreed. So no about-face, just to correct that. Anyway, it goes on. She returned to England for the first time since 2022 for a private reunion with King Charles. Meghan didn't make any public appearances during the trip. A source who knows the couple, oh, I wonder who, tells People in this week's exclusive cover story that she would have felt humiliated. Oh, poor Meghan, humiliated watching the public back and forth unfold. Another source tells People Meghan is very supportive of Harry, adding there's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded and that she wasn't able to be by his side. However, another insider adds when it comes to Harry's dealings with his family, she always lets him lead. Behind the scenes, the drama surrounding the visit was quite stressful, says a source close to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, so we're meant to feel sorry for them here. Eventually, it was decided that Prince Harry would return to the UK solo for the week of charity events, with Meghan and the children returning to England later in the week for the reunion. For those close to Harry, the public wrangling was as frustrating as it was familiar. This is not the first time. It has not been plain sailing with correspondence or trying to make things work, tells a well-placed source. It all comes back to security. If that was resolved, there would be so much more certainty every time he comes or they come. Can I just give Harry and Meghan a newsflash? It's been resolved a long time ago. There is nothing to resolve. You're not getting it unless there's a specific threat. So you're the ones creating this constant drama. And you know that. It's just People magazine lying. One of the clearest reminders of Meghan's absence came at the one-year countdown to the 2027 Birmingham Invictus Games on July 10, where she had originally been expected to appear alongside Harry. Invictus is Harry on his A game. It was look at what you're missing, adds Simon Vigo, author of the upcoming Four Wives of Windsor. It's a crying shame. Meghan and Harry could have been absolutely transformative for the royal family. So what you're getting here, and I'm just pointing it out to you, is just full-on pro-Sussex propaganda, because actually Meghan could have been there. She planned to be there. My belief is the reason she didn't attend is because she didn't want to be pictured with Prince Harry on the week that he had had the most significant courtroom loss in modern history. He is a loser. She didn't want to associate with him this week because, again, nothing in the security has changed. People went on. Prince Harry and Meghan's police protection in the UK was stripped after they stepped back from their royal roles and relocated to her home state of California in 2020. The Duke of Sussex has long sought to have it reinstated. People understands that a long-awaited review of Harry's security by Ravik is still ongoing. So yeah, nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Let me bring in royal reporter extraordinaire, a long-time member of the Royal Rota and royal exclusive breaker, but also now independent on the Robert Jobson Substack. Jobbo, so great to have you here. Can we kick off with Prince Harry last night at this Time 100 event? So surely now, Jobbo, tell me if I'm wrong, but surely we now have proof that he can fly in and out of the UK, sight unseen, no paparazzi pictures, no security troubles whatsoever. So what's his issue?
Well, I think that'll probably be a big issue for him because they do love a controversy because it boosts their brand, it boosts their numbers. But the reality is, you summed it up brilliantly in that intro. But you know, this has been a fiasco. It's been a circus. But actually, has it really hit anybody? You know, I thought actually it was quite. After all the toing and froing, it was quite low key. That the bigger picture was on Wales's and them at Wimbledon and William playing polo, and we didn't see her, and we saw a bit of him. But I mean, it wasn't major stuff. It's stuff we've seen before. Him doing the Invictus the preamble to the Invictus Games. I thought that this whole nonsense about the security was something they've just dreamed up from their own team. If you speak to people in the intelligence services, there is no threat against Harry, and that is why Ravik have not stepped up the security. If there was, the security level would be higher, and he would get an appropriate security as long as he gave them the notice that was required to actually do that review. The other thing is, look at what else would have happened really on this one, Dan. Is if I think he nearly played the Palace, nearly got away with it, because in the week he knew when that case was coming back, he knew probably that what the result was going to be before anybody else, and the fact was. He is a prince. He calls himself a Prince of England and a stay-at-home dad, whatever he's supposed to be.
And the inventor of the Invictus Games, Jobbo, but no mention of Archewell.
He didn't. That isn't true because he got that from America. I remember it was the year before. It was called the Warrior Games.
Yeah, he stole the idea.
He invented it. So, and that is a load of old nonsense. Although I'm not dissing the Invictus Games because I actually think it's a good thing. But you know, we'll see how long it can go on for. Let's hope for a little bit longer. But you know, this is a guy that was finally agreed to stay at Buckingham Palace, and luckily the Palace pulled that away from him. But he was railing against the independent judiciary, calling it a whitewash, taking on the free press in a way that, frankly, is not really acceptable in a world that we're living in when we're getting prime ministers coronated without even debate, and also attacking a High Court judge and also suing the government. These are the three pillars, you know, a free press, an independent judiciary, and a government that is elected. That his father, as the king, is there to secure. He stands to, you know, he's there to serve those pillars of the community. Otherwise, there is no point of a monarchy. And what worries me, and it does worry me actually, is that if Harry had been coming out of Buckingham Palace, the headquarters of monarchy, that would have been a really bad optic.
Well, I would go further than that, Jobbo. Constitutional crisis. You know, if he had made that statement from within the rooms of Buckingham Palace, which is what he intended to do. Then can we move on to this People magazine briefing, Jobbo? Just before I get your take on it, our Substack colleague, Tom Sykes of The Royalist, very, very good. He's making the point that this leak is Meghan trying to make herself the victim in all of this somehow. So he writes, what was it that was so awful this time, Pet? The audience with the king at his Highgrove sanctuary, the offer of an apartment at Buckingham Palace, maybe. No, apparently it was the very public way the back and forth about the visit was conducted. But Tom adds, Jobbo, hang on a second. It was her team. that fired the starting pistol on making public this entire psychodrama by issuing unprompted an operational note to journalists confirming that the whole California quartet would be flying over for what the Sussex people were already thrillingly billing as a dramatic rapprochement with the entire UK. Harry knew the status quo of the last 6 years was in place and that Ravik had not magically upgraded his protection, but he went ahead and made arrangements that he then cancelled in public. So Sykes argues the only people responsible for this playing out in public were Harry and Meghan. The palace said nothing. They sat patient as a hall porter waiting for the couple to make up their minds about a hospitality offer that had been sitting on the table for months. It was Harry's people, his people, Tom just emphasises that point, and I think it's a point worth emphasising, who put the trip in the papers. His people who confirmed the children. His people who then days later put out a second announcement saying he was now reconsidering whether to bring Meghan and the children at all because of a security row that per the first announcement they had already accepted and were quite comfortable working around. So, Jobbo, given that context from Tom Sykes, which I think was brilliantly explained, actually, how on earth can Meghan Markle then leak to People magazine, contravening the agreement that they had made with Buckingham Palace, that she is somehow the victim in all of this?
She always plays the victim, and they were always going to leak it. It was a matter of time. Even I thought it was quite quick how they've leaked.
They can't help themselves.
Detail. There'll be more detail that comes out about this, and it will all be positive about the Sussexes. I mean, the reality is that's what they're going to do. They're going to leak, and it's inevitable. I mean, it is inevitable. But with the whole business of this circus that came to town, effectively they were holding a gun to the king's head. There's nothing these children have done wrong, Archie and Lilibet, and I'm sure like you, like me, feel they're totally innocent. But they are being used in a way that is pretty despicable, because what's the king supposed to be? You know, what's the king supposed to do? He's told his grandchildren are coming to England, and that his son and daughter-in-law would like him to meet them and to have some sort of interaction with them for the first time in 4 years, for the first time in their memory, really. Of course he's going to say yes. He's a kind man, really, the king. He's not going to not want to see his grandchildren.
Okay, is he a weak man, though, Jobbo, too?
Yeah, but, it's difficult, isn't it? You're living with cancer. You've got a certain amount of finite time in your life. I mean, he's seeing all sorts of people behind the scenes. Michael Fawcett, who was got rid of as well. A lot of people being seen in this period, which, of course, a man without living with that, he doesn't know how long he's got. And so he's not going to turn that down. And that may be seen as weakness, but it certainly wouldn't have happened on the Queen's watch. The late Queen's watch. I don't think it would happen if it was Prince William, no matter what the situation was going on. But this is a father and a father-grandfather situation. I slightly get that, but it was quite clear that they were going to be played here, and I'm just glad that they didn't get to stay at Buckingham Palace, headquarters of the monarchy, which I think would have been the worst optic ever. And I think that Sir Clive Alderson got away with one there by withdrawing their offer just in the nick of time. And if Harry accepted straight away, my goodness, would that have been a terrible, terrible look for the monarchy?
Totally, it would have been. That was a fast save. Personally, Jobbo, people might think it's harsh. I don't think they should have been offered accommodation within any royal residence. I don't think they deserve it. I
think that was really probably just down to the children's situation and the security around the children's situation. Who was going on about that? But didn't she fly in from Portugal?
Yeah, and it's still not good enough anyway.
And by the way, security, it's nonsense. And is Birmingham less safe than London? And the whole thing about the security. I mean, a number of people on intelligence services say there are no threats.
And of course, really Colombia and Nigeria are much more dangerous. Can I just say? Well, and Ukraine.
Ukraine, yeah. Come on, I think we've had enough of this sort of boy child, this man child. His performance on that podcast talking about his grooming was really, you might forgive him.
People shitting themselves on a highway. It's the worst thing I've ever seen, Jobbo. I'm not exaggerating.
One man, if you want to be taken seriously, start being a bit serious. You're supposed to be on that. Whoever allowed him to go on there. I mean, I'm sure it's something he wants to do. But this laddish banter nonsense, and talking about your grooming and whether you're ginger or not. Frankly, who cares if you're ginger or not? Nobody, Harry, nobody.
Yeah, I found the whole thing repulsive, actually. But Jobbo, the other thing that's happened overnight, and again, I don't believe this is a coincidence. Okay, and just let me make my case. People magazine and the New York Post, New York Times, both left-wing allies of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. You'll remember the New York Times was where Meghan Markle claimed that she had miscarried before she wrote that big article for them. They revealed the Netflix news to the New York Times. So both the New York Times and People magazine running on the same day, Jobbo, pieces sort of trying to blame Prince William for this ongoing Cold War between the brothers. And again, I don't think it's a coincidence. Let me just take you through what the reporting is. People magazine writing Prince William and Prince Harry still have no contact. Despite Harry's reunion with King Charles, there has been no movement on William's side. A source tells People in this week's exclusive cover story. An insider telling the magazine, it's so broken. I thought it would have perhaps eased a little bit by now, to be honest, but there has been no movement, especially on William's side. So do you see what I mean? That the blame very much being put on William. There is no contact. They also say there's absolutely no contact between the next generation, the cousins too. And they then quote royal author Simon Vega saying Princess Diana would be devastated that it has turned out like this, particularly because the brothers were once so close. So that's People magazine. Then the New York Times, and that's interesting, isn't it? The New York Times does not really run many royal stories, to be honest. And they usually only do so if there's a particular reason, a particular agenda behind it. And they write, missing from Prince Harry's trip to Britain, a reunion with Prince William. Harry is clearly repairing his relationship with King Charles III, but the rift with his brother remains unresolved. Now, Jobbo, they officially say that spokespeople for Prince Harry declined to comment. And they said Kensington Palace, which represents Prince William, did not respond to requests for comment. Now, again, I just want to explain to people that line, Jobbo, because to me, that line is a little bit different. We obviously know full well how newspapers operate, how PRs operate, how the briefing game works. Now, Prince William did not respond to requests for comment. That means they just ignored this, right? Nothing. They didn't pick up the phone to the New York Times. They didn't reply to the email. Prince Harry declined to comment. My reading of that is that was declining to comment on the record, but briefing took place to the New York Times off the record. Because you've got to admit, it feels highly coincidental that People magazine and the New York Times would both come out with these articles on the same day, both being pro Prince Harry and Meghan publications.
Well, the New York Times is a serious newspaper, whatever your political stance on it. So they've had to go through certain procedures. Of course, they would have checked, and they have been briefed. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they have been briefed from clearly one side as well. There's no doubt about that. But I mean, I think they're pushing it to say that this relationship with his father is being repaired. I think that yes, he's had a meeting. I think that there's been 2 meetings, solo meetings, isn't there? And there's been one where they got them together. So the optics were there. They basically forced the king's arm. I think it's very significant by saying that they were bringing the kids. Then they did all this sort of nonsense that in between, they're not coming, they are coming. And the king obviously quite rightly got frustrated with that. And then they basically agreed to the king's rules. It's no doubt whatsoever the fact that Camilla, the queen, was there as Charles's Rottweiler, as his guardian, to make sure that he didn't make any promises or do things that I'm sure the conversation stuck to the children, because it's so easy when families have had a rift, if children get involved, they can sit and talk about the children until the cows come home, but you don't get into discussing things that have caused that rift. And I'm sure that never happened. So we're talking about, in the space of 4 or 5 years, 2 visits and 1 with the children. Camilla was really fiercely attacked by Harry in Spare. She really came under a lot of criticism, and the fact that she had the balls to be there and face it off, I think would have slightly surprised Harry. I suspected Harry thought he would probably be getting a visit with just his father, which would have been a different situation. But the fact that she stood alongside the king was important, because this is, in my view, and I'm being rather cynical here, this is all about money in the end. I mean, he wants his children to meet the grandfather, but ultimately the king is a man living with cancer. He has a finite time on this earth. And when King William is King William, there'll be no money coming Harry's way. The only money he's going to get is from a payoff from his father when his father passes. And I'm sure that he's aware of that. I'm sure that he's aware that he wants to make sure his children are looked after as well. And I'm damn sure that Meghan Markle is of that belief as well. So I believe, sadly, that this is a lot to do with money. Yes, it's to do with building bridges. But I do believe, ultimately, with time ticking, Harry knows he's got 1 payday left out of the royal family, and that's when his father passes.
God, that's just so horrific, but I completely agree with you, because I think, Jobbo, the financial situation is so underestimated at the moment. People don't realise what trouble they're in, and it's
Big
not
trouble.
about the fact.
That court case. Look at the court case, Dan. I mean, the Mayor are going to go back to court to get some of that 30 million, maybe more, back. I mean, who's going to pay that? Elton John has just basically allegedly said, "I'm not getting involved in paying for Harry's bills." So this is Harry really in a big problem financially, I think.
100%. And you've got the 3 million a year in security costs as well. And see, that to me is why I think he's so obsessed about security, Jobbo, as well. It's not about his safety in the UK. I know this because I know people, Jobbo, who have this RAVIC protection. And once you get it, you have to be protected wherever in the world you are. So what it means is that the UK taxpayer would be effectively funding Harry's security, while in California, but also, Job, if he decided to go to Ukraine again, if he goes to Nigeria, if he goes to Colombia. So all of a sudden what would happen is Harry would be able to wipe that $3 million security bill altogether. His private security would go, and the UK taxpayer would be paying his security wherever in the world he is. Because, can I just say, I know people claim that to the contrary, but there is no arrangement. No one has an arrangement. No person protected by RAVIC has an arrangement where they only receive security when they're in the UK. So former prime ministers, for example, let's think about Tony Blair. He spends so much time all across the world, Jobbo, wherever he is, be it the Middle East or Davos, wherever he is, the British taxpayers are funding his security.
Well, I mean, we're talking that Harry's 41, his children are very young. You know, we're talking a lot of money over the next 35, 40 years, aren't we? But why should the taxpayer fund it? His father warned him, okay? I remember writing it at the time. Before you broke that story of the slit, you know, there was discussions going on. And then the reality is, you know, the one thing that the king, who was then Prince of Wales, told his son was, have you thought about it? Have you given it all the thought? Because security, you know, is a big issue. You will basically not get it, definitely, if you're out of the royal family. You then broke the story in The Sun. And then Harry just assumed he was going to get it. He assumed he was going to continue because he'd served in the, you know, in Argentina. Sorry, when he served
Afghanistan,
in the army in Afghanistan, because he'd been and served with distinction, whatever way you look at it. You know, he assumed that because he had been a threat then and all that went on, that he would get the security, and he just didn't. And that was a big, big error where he was doing this. And I think that if he had told Meghan Markle, Meghan Duchess of Sussex, that clearly at the time, I actually think they would have had to reconsider their whole strategy. But he ignored the king. He ignored the Prince of Wales then, and he said, you know, I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing. And we had all that nonsense, the freedom flight, all the money came coming in from Netflix and Spotify, and all these deals they were getting. They thought the money would be never ending, but the tap was been turned off because
but you're so
they're
right,
a big
Job.
turn off.
They
They're a big turn off, and the tap's been turned
warned
off.
him though. So hard. And Joe, history matters here, right? Because Harry and Meghan keep trying to rewrite history. It's one of the reasons why there was that year-long sort of like, hey, are you sure about this? Are you really sure about this? Like, go
That's
away,
right.
see
They
what you
gave
want to
them
do.
time. They gave them.
Yeah.
Dan, as you wrote, when you broke the story, they had a year to sort this mess out.
And Charles paid all of that security for the whole year to the tune of like £5 million, is my belief, for that year.
Until he said, when the Queen then started getting calls, until he then said, I am not a bank. And that was fair enough.
This video is for news reporting, commentary, and educational purposes. The views expressed are based on publicly available information and personal analysis. We strive for accuracy but encourage viewers to verify information through official sources.